Yeah, when you learn in the morning and at night, it feels like there's no end. So it's just constantly learning the whole day. I mean, that's what it means. It's the whole day. It's just like it's learning.
Yeah, we're going to be like it was at the Tana that was constantly immersed in Torah all the time, so the Malach Mavet didn't catch me.
Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn. As chas of our learning, we should have the base of English immediately. I'm going to start at the top of Kuvav, 106. 106a. Okay. It goes like this. Tana Rabbanan was taught in a brisa. Tana Rabbanan is an important brisa that was edited by Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Sheh. It says, Chalitza mutas, a mistaken chalitza, kshera. It's kosher. What does it mean a mistaken chalitza? It means that there was a condition attached to it that wasn't fulfilled. Yeah, that this will be a chalitza if. Mutas. So the Gemara starts off. We'll have two opinions here. What is a chalitza mutas? Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says, Kol she'im leichalot sebekachat tekainza. They trick the guy. They tell the guy that do chalitza. He doesn't actually do the chalitza. He just sits down or stands or whatever, and she takes off the shoe. And that's going to be the way that the marriage takes place. They tell him that this is a marriage process, not a chalitza process. Meanwhile, she takes off the shoe. And then afterwards they say, oh, sorry, oops, that was a chalitza. Now you can't marry her. Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, their brothers-in-law, Ani Shaina, I teach, or I learn, Ben sheneskaven hu v'leineskaven hi, Ben sheneskaven hi v'leineskaven hu, chalitza sa psula, at sheneskaven shem kechet. Vat amrit chalitza sa kshera. I hold that they both need to have the proper intention of the chalitza. If one of them doesn't have the right intention, the chalitza is invalid. And you're saying that it's a valid chalitza when the person thinks that this is actually a marriage. Rather, we tell him, you want to make 200 zuz? Oh, nothing. That's like a year's salary. You want to make a year's salary? Just do a quick chalitza and you'll make a year's salary. I think Masayim zuz is a year's salary. So, yeah, if you do that, this is a good way to make some money. And then he does the chalitza, then they don't pay him. And it's still considered a good chalitza. Why is that? If there's a condition attached, why is it a good chalitza? Rashi adds in over here, he says that conditions we learn from the conditions that Moshe made to give the land of on the other side of the Jordan to Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven. They said they have a lot of cattle and they want that land, and Moshe at half of Menashe, right? That's Shimmer. And then Moshe Rabbeinu tells them that if you go in to fight first, then you'll get this land. He told them this condition that they have to go in to fight. Well, that was something that Moshe didn't actually fulfill. It was Yeshua that fulfilled it. Because Yeshua was then the leader. He was the shliach. So anything that can be done through a shliach could also have a condition attached. Anything that can't be done through a shliach, then conditions are nothing. So yesterday, someone asked, can you do Dr. Stein asked, can you do a chalitza with a shliach? And the answer over here would be no. Because there is no shlichus of chalitza. You have to do it yourself. Now, even a marriage, you can do a shliach, but chalitza not. So if that's the case, also the conditions don't work, which means that it's valid even if the condition isn't fulfilled. The whole condition is nothing. So that's Rabbi Yochanan's view of chalitza mutas, that the condition was put on it, but conditions are nothing. Maisabisha. Yeah, that's what we're holding. Maisabisha. No, I'm sorry. Tanya Nami Hachi. You have a brisa that says this. Chalitza mitas kshera. A mistaken chalitza, you see where we are, 106? A chalitza that's mistaken is kosher. Ezer chalitza mitas. What is considered a mistaken chalitza? Kol shemer chalitz la menashetitin lecha. Messiah says. When they tell the fellow, do chalitza, and we'll give you, or she'll give you, menashetitin. Titain. See that she will give you. Yeah, I could mean they will give. Shetitain. Yeah, she will give you.
We'll give it to you.
She will give to you
100 dinners, that's a lot of food.
200 zuz. 200 zuz is a dinner. Zuz is the same as a dinner, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dinner's a meal. Dinner.
What, 200?
He's saying a dinner means a dinner, a meal.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
dinner is actually a coin.
Has its diets. We haven't.
Okay.
That's a condition.
Yeah, but the conditions are nothing.
So it doesn't matter.
Right.
So it's-
Chalitza is still valid even though the condition wasn't fulfilled.
Yeah.
So with the different tribes east of the Jordan, they already had their lot because they destroyed.
But they would only be allowed to
Moab,
take that if they would follow the condition, which was to go and fight for the Jewish people and then come back and take it.
So they could only take those lands if they fought?
Yeah.
So that was the condition, but they
Yeah.
didn't have to.
Right.
I think.
I guess they could have gone into the land of Israel also.
That
But they
would
had to
have been
fight.
nice, though.
They wanted the pasture.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a story. She fell before a Yavam that was not an appropriate match for her.
Ooh.
Doesn't say if he was a bad guy or just wasn't a match for her. They said, do chalitza. He wanted to marry her. He says, do chalitza and she'll give you 200 zuz. Story came to Reb Chia. Said that it's kosher. Reb Chia was the author of the Brises, so he's the one that said chalitza matas is kosher. There was someone that came in front of Reb Chia Barab. Reb Chia Barab is a student of Reb Yechanan, major student of Reb Yechanan. Amar Allah, he said to her, Biti Amudi, my daughter, stand up. That means do yibam. Amra lay, she said to him, Amra lay Ema, or Ima, probably. The mother said to him, Yeshivasazu amidasa. Her sitting is her standing. Now, there's two interpretations here. One interpretation is that her not doing yibam is really better for her. Her sitting is amidasa is the appropriate way to go over here. Amrar Allah, he says to her, Yadatle, you know this fellow. Amalayin. She says yes. He sees that she has money, and he's trying to consume that money, trying to get that money. Amar Allah, he says to her, you don't want this? Amar Lay, she says that she doesn't want the marriage. Amar Lay, he says, do chalitza, and that's how you'll acquire her. Like sit down, she'll take off the shoe. That'll be like this marriage process. Labasa de chalitza, after chalitza was done, Amar Lay, he says to him, to the fellow, Hashta minach ifsalala. Now she's forbidden to you. Chalitza ma'alaisa kiechet tishtiri la'alma. Now do a regular chalitza, so that she should at least marry everyone else. He does a chalitza. He convinces him to do a chalitza. That's not really a valid chalitza, but it is valid enough that he can never marry her. But she can't marry anyone else yet, because he was tricked into this by saying that it was this type of chalitza is really a marriage. And Rabbi Yechanan holds that that's not a good chalitza. But it's a chalitza psula. So then he says, okay, look, you can't marry her anyway. You might as well just do a regular chalitza so she can go get married. Yeah. Nowadays, the guy would not consent to do the next chalitza. He would storm out of there and teach them a lesson. Yeah. Playing games. Okay.
Just reading a story about this organization called Work.
What is that? What is that?
It's an organization that organizes demonstrations
Uh-huh.
in front of places of business. Not to give them like forget.
Uh-huh.
So they have hundreds of success stories.
Uh-huh. The only thing with these things is that the numbers are not accurate. Wasn't hundreds. It was 2, 3. Yeah. Oh, it's in there. If that's considered a compulsion, is that considered a compulsion when they do that?
It's just the story is
Uh-huh.
how it came about.
Oh.
The halakha.
Uh-huh. I think someone said, what are these organizations for the Git? And they said, there's like thousands of men that don't give. And then like they looked into it, it wasn't actually thousands. It was tens, maybe 100 or hundreds, but not that. It gets exaggerated. It's not a good thing. I'm not saying that. It's just the numbers are up.
Well, one is like 1,000.
There you go. That's it's a whole world. Okay. So Bas Chamua de Rav Papa Nafla Yavam Shein Haganla. Rav Papa has a sister-in-law. It's his the way it's put. It's his mother-in-law's daughter. Okay, it means it's his wife's sister. So this is not a relative of Rav Papa, but she was married to someone else. She was married. His wife's sister was married to someone that passed away. And then his brother, that's pretty distant over here. His brother was not a good guy, or not an appropriate match for her. Now Abaya is the teacher of Rav Papa. He wanted to marry her, so Abaya tricked him into doing this sort of chalitza. And then he's going to tell him that, okay, now you did chalitza. So he says, do chalitza, and that's how you're going to marry her. Amalei Rav Papa, you don't hold of what Rabbi Yochanan held. Rabbi Yochanan says that that's not a good chalitza to say that. You're telling him that the chalitza is a type of marriage, and chalitza requires kavana. So he says, "Velahechi amalei." Abaya says, so what should I say? Just say that it's chalitza, but you're going to get 200 zuz. It's not that he thinks that chalitza is a marriage. He knows chalitza is chalitza. He's not going to marry. He knows what chalitza does. He just thinks he's going to get money on the side. The basa de chalitza, after the chalitza, Amarla, he says to her, I guess, Sil Havle, go give the 200 zuz to the fellow, to the yavam, to the chalitz. Now, Amarle, Rav Papa says, Mishatani b'chavdalei. She did a mishatani b'ch. She did a ha, I tricked you. That's mishatani b'ch. Milay Tanya was not taught. Harishi beirech m'beis asir ma'avra lefanav Amarle told Dina v'avireni, if someone's running away from prison and there's a boat over there, he says, take a dinar, a lot of money. Just let me take me over the channel, quickly get me out of here quickly. So when they get to the other side, he says, okay, give me the dinar. He says, no, this is only a 10-cent ride. Here's the 10 cents. So Alma, we see, he's allowed to say, I tricked you.
Why? Because he was a prisoner?
No, because he needed it quickly, but the actual price was, he doesn't have to pay the exorbitant sum. He really only has to pay the actual price of what its
Wow.
value is. Yeah.
The gas prices are going up. The real price is $2 a gallon, and this it's just making it exorbitant. It's extortion.
Right. So Hanami Mashatani Bach. Here also, she was just saying, Mashatani Bach, I was tricking you. Doesn't sound honest.
No, it doesn't.
So the ferryman asked a price that was much higher than it needed to be.
Or the person offered this high price.
Oh, offered a high.
Anyway,
This is the law. This is the law. It's also the same in secular law.
oh really?
And if you offer the price is so ridiculous.
And someone takes it.
doesn't do it. So you offer me $1,000 for this man.
It's desperate.
Okay, and then I said, where's $1,000? It was ridiculous. Has
Oh,
no
really?
meaning. There's no meaning.
Uh-huh.
Even if you signed a contract.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
It's the same in the law, isn't it?
That's what it sounds like.
Wait, what exactly has no meaning?
Yeah.
What is
In an astronomical exorbitant price
To save your
Yeah.
life, though.
for
need to
for an
sign.
item that doesn't have that value is not considered a real deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could have charged him 5 cents.
So I guess it's
I know they do this in the Svardish Ksubas. They
A
write
lot of money.
they write 50,000, 100,000, 100 million, in the Ksuba, and it doesn't really mean anything.
I don't know. I have a friend that's a diamond jewelry guy. He said it's Persian, right? So his father-in-law made him put $200,000 to make sure that he wouldn't divorce his daughter.
Uh-huh.
Right? He's holding to
Sure enough.
They've been married for 40 years.
Oh. Uh-huh.
He could never afford to divorce it.
Huh.
He would have married
The
her
first
anyway
40
for-
years are the hardest.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting with the US government, they could charge $50,000 or 5,000 for a screw, in an airplane,
Uh-huh.
and they pay it. It's just interesting, the difference between our reality and their reality, which we pay taxes for.
I hear. It's interesting.
It's extortion.
Look at how the story ends.
Let's see.
It's not the best ending.
No,
Amalei, Avuchecha. What happened was Rav Papa was so knowledgeable. Everything he said was accurate, and Abaya is the teacher. Now Abaya, his parents passed away when he was born. His father passed away before he was born, and his mother passed away after he was born. Abaya says that he never violated the laws of Kibbud Avim because he never had, he didn't have parents. So that's why Abaya was raised in Rabba's house. Rabba Bar Nachmani, Rabba raised Abaya. So he sees that Rav Papa is so knowledgeable. He says it must be that he was able to study much more than he was. He says, Avochecha. He says, where's your father? He says, Amalei B'mas, he's in the city. Eimachecha, where's your mother? Amalei B'mas, she's in the city. Yav B'einei Shchivan. Yav B'einei means he put his eyes on them, Shchivan, and they passed away. It must mean like a sign of like jealousy of something that like an ayin hara sort of thing. Okay, I don't have any other explanation for this. How does it work? I don't know. This is one of these gemaras I can't explain. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Chalitza mutas kshera. Okay, we learned before that a mistaken chalitza is kosher. Get muta, if there's a mistaken get, it's possible. Now, the explanation is very clear according to what we explained. That chalitza that cannot be done through a shliach So the condition is meaningless. But a get that could be done with the shliach, that's like beginning of Masechtas Gittin. So a condition is significant. So therefore it's possible. Okay, that's clear, the first line of this. Chalitza ma'uses psula. A chalitza that's forced with compulsion is puzzle. Get musa, but a get that's forced is kosher, What's this hechidami? What's going on over here? That's not what we learned. That you can force a get. If the person actually says, I want to give it, so I feel a chalitza nami, then chalitza should be good. And if he didn't say I want it, so get nami like, then the get's also not good. They force the person to say that I want it. That's they have to force. Where says Achi Kamar? Chalitza mutas leilam kosher. A mistaken chalitza is always kosher. Why? Because there's no such thing as a condition in a chalitza. Get muta li'olam pasul, but a get with a condition is pasul if the condition is not fulfilled. Chalitza ma'usis, get ma'usa, a chalitza that's forced, and a get that's forced, zimnin kasher, zimnin pasul. Then sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends. But the same halacha applies to both of them. It depends if he says, I want it. Now, of course, he's forced, so he doesn't want it. But because they force him, he decides that he wants it. They convinced him to want it. And the Rambam writes that because every Jew, really inside, he wants to fulfill the will of Hashem, so just the outside was stopping him. So when they get rid of that outside, then the inside is what he actually wants. The Tanya was taught in a Bryce Yakriv that he should bring the Yakriv. He brings it. He brings the carbon. Malamit Shekaifen, I say that they force him to bring a carbon. If he vowed to bring a carbon, they force him. Yachal Bal Karchim, maybe they actually force him. No, it has to be willingly. How do they force him? And it's willingly. Kaifen, I said they force him until he says that I want. The same thing is with a divorce document. Kaifan, I said, they force him until he says I want. Okay. Amar Rava. Rava says Amar Rav Schreira, Amar Rav Huna. Wow. Because this goes all the way back to Rav Huna. Rav Huna is the student of Rav. Cholzen afal pishein makirin, memanem af pishein makirin. Lefikachen kaisen get chalitza elam ken makirin, kaisen get me and elam ken makirin. The cheshin lebes nitayim. He says in the name of Rav Huna. This is an interesting piece. I heard about a case like this, where
This place is just literal, doesn't recognize.
what happens is, if two people show up in Besdin and they say, my name is so-and-so, and another one says, my name is so-and-so, and we want to do a chalitza, we want to do miyun. Miyun means that the wife rejects the husband and walks out of the marriage because she's underage. So the Besdin can do the chalitza and the miyun, even though they didn't get the witnesses to say, do you know that this person is really the person that they're claiming to be? They can do it. The only thing is they can't write a document. If you want to write a document, then we have to verify that. So the chalitza could be done, but the document can't be done unless we have the verification. There's two ways of going about this. One way is don't do anything until you know 100%. Other way is, well, we'll do what we can, and then we'll find out later. But we're not going to do the doc. So they said, this is Rav in the name of Rav Shchein, in the name of Rav Huna, that you can do chalitza even though we don't have witnesses testifying who the people are. And you can do miyan even though. However, you can't write a get because you can't write the document. You can't write the get chalitza, the chalitza document, and you can't write the get miyan because they may show up in another Besdin saying that, look, we even have a document there, and now allow us to get married to other people. However, Rava says, Rava Didei Amar Eimer, Ein Cholton Elam Kein Makirin, Veim Emanim Kein Makirin. Don't do anything. Lafika, and therefore, kaisim get chalitza off pishay makim, kaisim get min off pishay makim, lechashin lebesn time. Therefore, if there's two witnesses that witness this chalitza or this mion, the witnesses can write a document to what they saw, because they know that the Besdin would have never done it if they didn't know who it was. Yeah, I forget there was a story where a twin showed up in the Besdin and was trying to give a get to his brother's wife. And I don't know what they were trying to gain over there, but they wanted to stop bothering him or something. So, or maybe there was like money involved. Give the get, we'll give you this or something. Anyway, he wanted to. They caught it somehow, but you can imagine, a twin shows up and says, "I'm the husband," and and sometimes you can do a get even without the woman being there. You send it with the shliach, so it is possible to get away unless someone testifies. They ask him, do you know this person? They ask the other people there, do you know who this person is? If not, show us identification. And then you rely on identification, a passport, a license, and this you do rely on that. I mean, otherwise we would go crazy. No, I mean that's how the government relies on things. You pull out your license. That's the basic identification. Okay. Mitzvahs chalitza. Is that a new Mishnah? Mitzvah chalitza is bahu v'yavam tilabestin. Him and the Yevama, and his Yevama come to Besdin. They have a little conversation with him. They give him advice: should he do the marriage or not? Shenemar, as it says, v'karle zikni yir v'dibrei love. They have to speak to him.
I didn't know they go to the base.
Yeah, well, they go to a shara to the gates. And that means to the Besdin. They speak to him. What do they speak to him about? They tell him, like, if she's an older woman or he's an older man and she's young, or she's the opposite. So then they say that, but you don't want fights in your house, so you should do chalitza instead, unless it's an appropriate match. Then we had that other opinion, remember, of, I forget, was it a Reb Meir, that if the intention wasn't correct, then it wasn't, if the marriage wasn't being done for the sake of to upkeep the brother's name, then that was also an issue. Abishal. Yeah, Abishal. Shenemar v'karle ziknir v'dibrei love. V'hi meres. Then she says, Ma'ain Yevami. My brother-in-law is refusing. Lahakim la'achiv shem b'Yisrael. To establish a name for his brother in Israel. Lo'ava yavmi. He does not want to do yibam. Lo'ava yabmi. Yabmi. He doesn't want to do yibam. And he says, I don't want to take her. They would speak in Hebrew. As the Gemara Saita discusses that these terms had to be recited as they are in the Torah, in the Hebrew language. The Yevama comes close in front of the elders. She removes the shoe from his foot. She spits in front of him, a spit that the Dayanim can see. And then she says, Kacha yasa leish asher leyivnes besa. Is it yasa or yasa? What is it? How's the vowels over there? Kacha yasa. So is done to a man that doesn't build the house of his brother. Adkan hayamakan, until here is what they would have them recite. Shehikri Rabbi Yorkanes Tachasa Allah Ela B'Kfar Eitam Yasa. Yeah, Yasa. Kacha Yasa. Okay.
Does the mitzvah go to just the Yevama or also the brother also who gets his shoe spit on? He's not performing evil, so.
Right.
you get a mitzvah.
We were saying the whole time that the real mitzvah is the yibam. The chalitza was just a way of avoiding the mitzvah.
Oh, right.
But also, chalitza is also called a mitzvah in certain places, not as
Okay.
much as yibam though.
Right.
Okay. When Rabbi Hyrcanus did this underneath the olive tree in Kfar Eitam, is that an olive tree? Does it say a tree? What is the olive tree? The Gomer Skala Parsha. They finished the entire portion. Notice they read the whole thing. Then that's what they would do. From then on, they would read the whole parsha, the whole section in the whole passage. And they call in Israel, they call his name in Israel the house of the removed shoe. Mitzvah b'dayanim mitzvah talmidim. That's who recites that? That's the dayanim say that, not the students, not the people that are standing there watching. Rabbi Yehuda mitzvah kolaim dim sham leimer chalutz anal. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Everyone is supposed to say chalutz anal, the one whose shoe is removed. Okay.
That's because it's like.
Because he's supposed to be called. This is what it's called in Israel. So everyone says it. Amar Rav Yehuda says, Rav Yehuda is a student of Rav and a student of Shmuel. He says, mitzvah chalitza, the mitzvah of chalitza is kairav, the kairah, she recites, kairei, he recites, v'cheletzes, she does the chalitza, she removes the shoe, v'reikika, she spits, the kairah, and then she recites the kacha yeyaseh leish, so should be done to the man. The Gemara says, my kamashmalan masnisini. What's Rav Yehuda telling me? That's exactly the Mishnah that we just learned. So it says, hakamash mitzvah hachi v'yapech lesan ba. Did you notice how he started his comment? He says, mitzvah chalitza, the mitzvah of chalitza is. What did he mean by saying mitzvah chalitza? What he means to say is that's the appropriate way of doing it. But if it's not done that way, it's still kosher. Emphasis on mitzvah, that's the better way of doing it. But if he does it in the out of order, it's still acceptable. Tanya nami hachi was also taught in a brayso hiktim chalitza l'rakika. If he did the chalitza, whether the chalitza, the removing of the shoe, was before the spitting, bein shiktim rakika l'chalitza, or whether the spitting was before the removing of the shoe, masha asa is a good chalitza. We had this before this discussion.
Oh, okay. I thought you were supposed to spit in the shoe, but that's
No.
a better way.
You don't spit in the shoe.
No?
You just spit in for the dayanim or for him to see.
So what do you do with the shoe exactly?
You just take it off,
take it
remove it.
Oh.
Yeah, I
You
think
gotta keep it
she would
afterwards, or-
throw it.
Oh,
So you don't spit into the shoe, you
No.
just spit outside.
Amar Abaya. Abaya says, "Hi, mind the mikri. Get chalitza." The person that's helping them recite the passages, lay likri ledida. You should not tell her loy lechudei. The word loy, which is not, means no. It doesn't, rather. V'ava yavmi lechudei, and want to do yibam on me. Notice you don't divide up that passage. He does not. Pause. Want to do yibam on me. The mashma, because that sounds like avayavni. He wants to do yibam on me. Do you follow? Because he took a pause between the not and yeah. This may be like the source of those English rules of split infinitives or something. They have these. You have to put it you have to put it together, or else it could sound different. I don't know if there's logic to those or whatever. Okay.
That is the source.
Okay. Ela layavayami. You have to say it together. You have to say does not. Okay. And you can't say to him, they should not dictate to him, That means I don't. Pause. Chafasti lakachta, want to take her. Loy lechudei and chafasti lechudei. The mashma chafasti lakachta, because that sounds like he wants to take her. Ela loy chafasti lakachta. You have to say, I don't want to take her. You have to say it together. Rava said, this is all Abaya saying this. Rava says, Afsuki milsi lesson, but look, Rava says he's allowed to breathe. It doesn't really affect the meaning if he takes a breath. So that's acceptable. There's a Gemara similar to this in Sukkah where there's phrases where he's allowed to pause in. I forget what the passages were, something in Halal. Laya Mesim, something. I forget. There's pause where Abaya was concerned about taking a breath in between certain things, and Rava says, no, he's allowed to breathe. So, okay.
So the deception of, was it Yitzhak?
Oh,
Yes. And
Esav.
Esav.
Esav is your firstborn. I am who I am. And Esav is your firstborn. Okay. Rav Ashi Ashkechil Rav Kana de Kametstar Umikri La Yava Yavmi. Rav Ashi sees Rav Kana. Rav Kana was like the teacher of Rav Ashi. He sees that he's saying he's having difficulty getting the woman to say La Yava Yavmi in one shot. Amalei Le'Sav Lamar Lahad Rava. You don't hold of what Rava says. Amalei Ma'ida Rava B'Layava Yavmi. Rava agrees that phrase Layava Yavmi, that has to be said together. It was the other ones that didn't have to be said together, according to Rava, because the other one Leichafasi Lakachta, it had no other meaning. You can't say loy, no. Chafasi Lakach. There was no other meaning. But over here, Layava Yavmi, it could be a continuation of Me'ain Yevami, Me'ain, what was the beginning of? Me'ain Yevami Lahakim Shemachav Yisrael Loi. Refusing to establish a name in Israel, he is not. In Yava Yavmi, he wants to establish the name. Notice that could be misunderstood. So Rava would agree to this, because that has the beginning of a sentence that if you end off with is not, so then that changes the sentence. Okay. Amar Abaya says, Haiman the Kasav Gita, the Chalitzta, Lichtav Hachi. Abaya says that when someone's writing the document of Chalitza, he should write in the document, he should say, Zakrino Lidida min Mein Yavami ad Avayavmi. We dictated to her to say from my Yavam refuses until he refuses to do Yivam. And we dictated to him in ad lakachta that he doesn't want until the words to take her. And then we dictated to her min kachavad chalatzanal from so is done until the removal of the shoe. Okay. Marzutra misartet. Marzutra would make the sirta, that's the line to score the paper. V'ksiv l'kula parsha, and he would write the entire passage over here, like a mezuzah, he would write it out. Maskef lamar baridi v'alaynitli kasev, you're not allowed to make the Torah into paragraphs, passages. You have to write the whole Torah. There's a Gemara that talks about that the Torah is not supposed to be written as Megillas, small scrolls. So the Hilchas HaKavasei the Marzutra, but the halacha is like Marzutra that for this purpose you are allowed to write it out. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Rakaka v'kalatata yaruach le'yasav le'klum. If she spat, but the wind carried it away, and he wasn't able to see it, so it's nothing. My taima, what's the reason? V'yarka b'fanav be'inan, she has to spit in front of him. And if the wind carried it away, then it wasn't in front of him. Hilka, hu arach v'hi gutza. If he's tall and she is short, the kalata ruach, and the wind took it away, ikka b'fanav. The spit was in front of him, because when it came out of her mouth, it was already in front of him. He aruka v'huguts. If she is very tall and he is short, then if the wind's going to take it away, the spit has to at least fall at least up to in front of him, and then it could take it away. Fine, but at least the spit was in front of him. If she ate garlic and then she spat, or she ate gargishta, some sort of clay or some clod of dirt, so that's not considered spitting. My time of a yarkab me'atzma being in veleka. Actually, we don't want her to eat anything. To have her like not eat anything the whole morning or something. So that the spit comes naturally, not from these other foods that cause spit to come. Rava says that the dayanim need to see the spit. It has to be in front of the eyes of the elders, and then she spits. And the Mishnah said that the dayanim are the ones that announce that this fellow's name is called in Israel Nikr Shmai. Is it this fellow or this place? Shmai. His name or its name? What is Shmai? How do they translate it?
His name would be called in Israel.
His name is called in Israel. The house, referring to him, I guess, not the place. He who had his shoe removed. Mitzvah dayanim between him. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Hamachas in Yoshem Fnei Rav Tarfon. One time we were sitting in front of Rav Tarfon, a basi Yevama Lachleitz. The Yevama came in to do chalitza v'amar lano, and he said to us, Anu kolchem, everyone should respond. Chalitza anal, chalitza anal, chalitza anal. The shoe is removed, the shoe is removed, the shoe is removed. Hadron lach mitzvahs, chalitza. Okay. Notice on the bottom, this Taisus Chad Mitamai, is remember the spitting wasn't ma'akev according to some opinions. That you're yaitzer without the spitting, still considered a chalitza. But nevertheless, the spitting has to be done right. But if it wasn't done at all, it's still acceptable. I guess if it wasn't done right, it's also acceptable. It's just not considered that it was done.
So
I guess you do it again.
Chalitza without spitting?
Well, we had a discussion about that. If she didn't spit,
Because it always said that the judges have to see spittle.
Right.
I mean, I heard it could be done out of order, it'd still be fine.
Rekika Leit Pasla, that was a view of Rabbi Akiva.
No, it's just,
Yeah.
Really?
Rabbi Tarfon is Rabbi Akiva's generation. He's a little bit older than Rabbi Yehuda.
Over here.
No, that's a different Rabbi Yehuda.
Oh,
This is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lai.
that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and Rabbi Tarfon should be somewhere on this chart. Yeah, I don't know why he's not on it. Yes, here he is. He's up there.
He's up there.
He's older than Rabbi Yehuda. Okay,
How long?
I think about a half hour. Okay, should we leave it over here? We'll start. Well, tonight we'll do Bisham Yamrim. Keep going. Okay. We'll do the Mishnah. We're behind.
So behind.
Bisham Yamrim. Bisham says, "Ein memanam el arusis." When it comes to mian, a woman rejecting her husband and walking out, that's only if she was betrothed, but not if she was fully married. It's a strict view. We always learned that if she's married by her brother, she's allowed to do mian, even if there was a full marriage there. Basil says no, both. Whether she was fully married or if she's only betrothed, the same halacha. Mian is acceptable. Bishamar Eimer Bebal, V'loi B'Yavim. That's not sure if that's supposed to be there. Beisil Eimer Bebal B'Yavim. Let's say the husband passed away and Yibum was performed. Can she still do Miyun and walk out of the next husband's marriage, who is the brother-in-law? So Beisil says yes, Bishamar says no. Bishamar Eimer Befanav, Beisil Eimer Befanav, Shlei Befanav. Does it need to be in front of the husband? Bishamar says yes, Beisil says no. Bishamar Eimer Bebezdin. And Beisil says Bebezdin, Shlei Bebezdin. Doesn't need to be in Bezdin either. Wow, so it doesn't need to be in front of him or in Bezdin. Amlam Beisil Beishamai. Beisil says to Beishamai, Menas Viktana Fil Dal Vehei Pamim. She can do Miyan even 4 or 5 times. She walks out of marriage after marriage.
She can't do that for long.
Until she's of age.
Yeah.
Right. Amalei Beishamai, Ein B'nai Yisrael Hefker. Beishamai says no. She doesn't get remarried until she matures. She can't leave the second one. Yeah, that's the discussing this rabbinic marriage, that they don't do another marriage for her. She does miyan, and then they wait for it to grow up. Then it says v'timayin again. We'll have to see what that means. V'tinase, and then she gets married. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Rav Yehuda is a student of Shmuel. He's a student of Rabbi and Shmuel. He says, my time of the Beis Shammai. What's the reason for Beis Shammai? Vishain Tanai ben Nesuin. Since you're not allowed to have a condition in a Nesuin, and v'i Nesua Timayin, and if a Nesuin, which means the full marriage, would be possible to do miyun, that means she walks out of it. I'm going to say, how'd she walk out of a marriage? It must have been that there was a condition. It was a conditional marriage. It's a conditional marriage. But one second, we don't want people to think that you're allowed to have a condition in marriage. So that's why we don't allow miyun for nesuin. Let's say there was a chuppah, but they didn't consummate the marriage. What about that? Where it says, well, if you say tonight b'chuppah, you don't do a condition in a chuppah either. So that would explain why there's no miyan after the chuppah. It's only by the erisin. Masar ab l'shluchi abal ma'yekel meimar. There's a problem with Masar Ha'av. It doesn't mean Masar Ha'av, it means the brothers. If the brothers, it's as if the brothers are taking over the place of the father. But if it was given over to if she was given to the messengers of the husband, in other words, for the marriage. So what about then? It says Leipleg Rabbanan. The rabbis don't make a distinction between this type of marriage. In other words, she didn't even make it to his house yet. Is that already going to be the problem that where she can't do miyan anymore, according to Beis Shammai? So Beis Shammai says, well, Leipleg Rabbanan. The rabbis don't make a distinction between cases, and it's already considered a marriage. So, Beis Hillel, what does Beis Hillel say? Everyone knows that this is not a full marriage, that this is only a rabbinic marriage. And no one's going to say that because she walked out of this marriage, that she's allowed to walk out of, that you're allowed to do a condition in other marriages as well. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Good job, everybody.
We start the Gemara.
Did I start the Gemara? Yeah. I'm up to Rabba Verb.
Thank you very much. Shkoyach.
Shkoyach.
2 days, remember 2 days.